I'm Siobhan Turnquest, here at the Ferry in Little Exuma. We're going to meet a gem of a lady who came here from New York City to visit our little gem in Exuma. She fell in love with the history and culture of our Bahamas. Mrs. Fitz-Gerald, can you tell us your story?
I came to the Bahamas as a tourist in August to September of 1968, and I met John Fitz-Gerald, who turned out to be my future husband. We were married in November 1969. My husband was born in 1940, right in this house, and it was a totally different life here on Exuma at that time. It was a farm life. And my husband would constantly tell me about his childhood, about growing up on Exuma. He felt he had the best childhood of anyone in the whole wide world. And he would tell me how before he went to school, barefoot, he had chores to do. Tending to the creatures, collecting firewood, collecting buckets of water, etc. It was, again, a totally different life here. And the house that we're in right now is the house that he was born in, he and all his siblings. It was built by my father-in-law as a wooden house. It was more than just the usual two-room house, front bedroom and front living room, with a separate house for cooking with a chimney, because cooking was done over firewood, and collecting firewood was one of the chores that John had to do in the mornings before school. Daddy, because he was a carpenter and boat builder and built a lot of furniture in this house, added on an extra piece onto the basic two-room structure. And that functioned as the eating or dining area, plus a workshop and storage area for Daddy. Right behind me was a solid wall that was the original boundary of the second bedroom, the sitting room. And now I'd like to give you a tour of this house, which has so much history. In addition, before I begin, there were 2 extra bedrooms added on to the south side of the house in the 70s when certain grandsons had to come from Nassau to live here with their grandparents. Now that it's just me living in the house, I don't need 3 bedrooms, one for me, one for a guest bedroom, and the 3rd bedroom is now a historical room. In addition, we have the original chimney, which my sister-in-law always said she thought was the most beautiful chimney of all. And now I understand why. Daddy, who was really a perfectionist and really an artisan, built it like an obelisk with smooth lines and sharp corners. It really, in itself, is a work of art. Here we are at the front door, which was lined up with the southern door. Just like all the old houses lined up all the doors and all the windows to maximize the breeze and give maximum cross ventilation. Right here is the mahogany trunk that Daddy made for storage, and all family memorabilia are in there, the family Bible, etc. Now this is the living room or the front room, and the second room was always the bedroom. Now you see this room is closed in, but originally where you see this horizontal piece of wood, it was only a partition. That's how they built the houses, again, to allow maximum ventilation. We air conditioned that front room, and therefore we had to close it up with those vertical pieces of wood. Another wonderful point of interest is this doorway. This is the original doorway and the original door and the original glass doorknob. If you will note, this doorway is much more narrow than modern doorways. That's how doorways were built in those days, because people were smaller. Daddy decorated it slightly because if it was closed, it would show out into the sitting room, and so he recessed here, made a little beveling. I love this door. The back side of it is just flat wood. We are now in the front bedroom. If you will notice, that window, which is a modern window, much more, much wider than the original window is lined up with a doorway into what was added on to as a bathroom later on, but that originally was a window. Again, the windows and doors were lined up. Originally, this bedroom did not have a closet. This is my pride and joy. This is the original iron bedstead, the original iron headboard, and the frame. I believe there was a footboard, but that has disappeared somehow. In addition to the original iron bedstead, this is a lovely chenille bedspread that my mother-in-law had that I love to put on this bed, only for show. I want it to last forever. This is another pride and joy. This mat, this hand-crocheted mat, was my mother-in-law's wedding gift to me and my husband. She just asked me what colors I wanted, so since I was a child of the 60s, I said pink and orange. So she gave me mango and pink, which is just heavenly. This piece of furniture and the matching double dresser are indicative of the type of inexpensive furniture that was very popular here in the 50s, 60s. I have chosen not to replace them, and as the drawers become semi-functional, I find ways to continue using them. I've become a real island girl now. I am now standing at what was a doorway into that eating, dining area and storage shed and workshop and petty shop area. It was a narrow doorway and there was a wall here. My husband and I knocked down the wall to open up the house and make it cooler. This is a magnificent table made by my father-in-law, Clarence Fitz-Gerald. The chairs were just inexpensive just to have chairs. Let me show you the full art of this table. This was made all with hand tools, no power. My father-in-law built boats, hand tools, no power tools. He never used power tools. My mother-in-law's first name was Helen. My father-in-law was not a very warm, affectionate type. That was not what he was known for. But we think in the family that this little crossbar means that this is an H for Helen. And please note the lovely wooden dowels. In addition, the legs are tapered. And Daddy even did, I think on this side it's easier to see, a little ridge. Whoops. Down here, if you can see it, a little ridge where the bottom of the table base joins the legs. What I love about these chairs, they are not too tall. They do not detract from the beauty of the table. This credenza was made by my husband, John Fitz-Gerald, who was trying to figure out if he had the same genes as his father. He really did not have a chance to observe his father working while he was growing up too much. But when we came to live here, I told him I had to have a credenza. I needed storage area. He said, I never did anything like this. I said, oh, you have all those how-to books, and Daddy had all those how-to books. I know you can do it. He had already put all the wooden, had already put in this beautiful wooden tray ceiling. So I figured this was a good project for him, and I needed the storage space. He gave me a little beveled edge here, and you will note, in true Fitz-Gerald fashion, the doors are lined up. Perfect. Perfect. And here are the pictures of my in-laws, may they rest in peace, Clarence Fitz-Gerald and Helen Fitz-Gerald. These are some small glass buoys. You don't find these anymore. They say that the Italian glass blowers would put holy water in a certain number of these buoys to bless the fleet. Possibility. Otherwise, how did that water get in there? We are now in the historical room. This was originally a window and a door, wall here. Then it became the doorway entrance into this bedroom and the next bedroom where I'm pointing when those grandsons had to come back to stay with their grandparents. Every morning when I get up, if it is really dead calm out there, all alone I do an imitation of my father-in-law and I say, water key day. Because the men of the family had a passion for water key in the Gementos. It's 25 miles due south of the ferry, and it was like a child in Candyland for a fisherman. This doorstop, I know, was something handmade by my father-in-law. I believe it was either meant to be a conch bruiser, or in the boat it could be used to stun the fish, to kill them quickly and mercifully, but it is a very effective. Again, you can tell this is handmade. This is a very good doorstop. Here's another glass buoy, even more wonderful because of all the wonderful knotted rope around it. Next, from sail making, there's some thread and the leather band, which was functioned as a thimble when sewing the sail. This is a trophy for the Sea Wind, a boat that Daddy built. 1989, Long Island Regatta. This was just a modern gift from a friend because of the nautical influence of all these wonderful knots and splices. But this device is called a scribe. It was made for my husband by a friend of his. And I'll tell you what for. You see how all these wood pieces can slide? It goes with this picture. That was my husband, and that was the original Sea Wind, which he wanted to restore. But unfortunately, the original Sea Wind was so far gone, that was impossible. So what they did was measure the lines of the original Sea Wind. Everybody always said Clarence Fitz-Gerald's boats had beautiful lines. They measured the lines, or the shape of the boat, using this device, this scribe, and then they wrote down those measurements on draft paper, and that became the blueprint for what John built, which was not called the Sea Wind exactly because he made certain changes. The transom, for instance, was he raised a little bit because the boat was taking on too much water, and the same thing with the sides of the hull. He added, I believe, one more plank on each side to make it higher on the sides as well. And that boat still exists, and she's called Uncle John's Sea Wind. This is an original water glass made with wood and glass and the iron straps. The cotton was my idea. I cut this cotton and placed it in the water glass, using the water glass as a vase on purpose, because cotton is living history. Cotton is not indigenous or native to the Bahamas. It was brought by the slaves when they came with those loyalist southern plantation owners to make their cotton plantations here in the Bahamas, using the land grants that the British government gave them after the British Crown lost the American Revolution. This is a cannonball, a lead cannonball. There was a fort on this island, and there's an area on Little Exuma called the Fort, and that's probably where this cannonball came from. It might also have been used as ballast in a sailboat for racing and or just when you have rough weather. And the final item here is a wool sponge that my father-in-law made. He kept, in the later years, let's say the 60s and 70s, he kept a sponge nursery in the back there. Here we have another lovely piece of furniture that Daddy made. Note again, this again is mahogany, and note the tapered legs. There's no trim here, but The table, again, is a work of art, again made with hand tools. No power tools. Here we have, made from palm top, from silver top, from the discard, as the straw workers say. This is a whisk broom. This was made by Miss Retta Dames from right down the road at the Ferry, Little Exuma. There still are people here in the Bahamas that remember how to make these. This is a picture of Clarence Fitz-Gerald in the house, in this wooden house before the sheetrock was put up for the walls. So you see the wooden walls here. That is the southern door that we noted when we first came in. And I don't know if you'll see it on the camera, but if you look out that southern door, there is a wooden stand, and on that stand there are 2 galvanized aluminum wash tubs turned upside down. Here's another picture of Daddy working on the framing of a boat in later years. If you remember the lovely mat that my mother-in-law made for our wedding gift, mats and doilies were very popular, so I have some doilies here. Some lovely doilies. And do you see what I have right below the fringes? A potty bucket. Now this was a new one, purchased very recently at Smitty's on Great Exuma, but I do have an old one that's all rusty, etc., but I lent it to tourism for the Heritage Festival, for their replica of an old room. But I needed to have a potty bucket here because that is where the potty bucket went, under the bed. The showpiece and the most special piece in this room. My father-in-law, Clarence Fitz-Gerald, was inaugurated posthumously in October of 1992 into the National Family Island Regatta Hall of Fame. This is a plaque made by my sister-in-law during a recent visit. She wondered if she still remembered how to start a plaque and how to make it. Well, after she did this lovely work, she probably thought I would throw it away. No, no, no. That's Elizabeth Fitz-Gerald. Now, this photograph here was made by John B. Janelle, a young man who grew up here on Exuma. His father was English, his mother was from Grand Cayman. To me, it is a classic Bahamian boy sailing his Gamalami boat. This is a photo from the original Exuma Airport, which was down, way out east, down what we call the old airport road. This was taken, you may not be able to see the hairstyles and the clothing styles, but trust me, if you could see them, you'll see that this was taken in the 70s. And that's a hand-painted sign, beautifully done, that says, "Welcome to Georgetown, Exuma," with turtles and fish, etc., etc. It's just a treasure of a photograph. And this is a photograph of me next to a stone pillar and stone wall that is just down the road at the boundary line of the Ferry estate, what was called the Ferry estate at that time, and Forbes Hill. I love this because I love how this old stone pillar and wall are so strong and so intact after all these years. Of course, a kerosene lamp. This cowbell was given to me, it was from the States, it was given to me by one of John's brothers and his wife as a Christmas present because they knew how much I love Junkanoo and cowbells. This, people salivate over. This is a complete set, volumes 1 through 6 of the Royal Readers. They don't print them anymore. So this is what was used years ago. This was used for all the, not only for reading, but for the recitations that children did. It's a wonderful, wonderful collection. Oh, this was just given to me by the man who was watching over the iguanas when they were filming Pirates of the Caribbean down at Sandy Key. And this is one of those special iguanas. This was given to me by an expatriate whose husband had passed, and she found this in his possessions, and she said, oh, it's only one, not two, and it's all taped up. But I was happy to have it, because in the bands, in the early Bahamian bands, there was a great Spanish influence in the music. And that is history right there. All those trading boats, sailboats, going back and forth between the Bahamas and Cuba and Haiti and Dominican Republic. And that's why all the bands had maracas. And this is just my personal treasure. It's not worth anything. I have it at least 30 years. It is a wonderful poinciana pod that does not split open, that does not break, and it has a wonderful sound. So this is my beloved first percussion. Are you ready? Woke up early one morning, kissed my mama goodbye. Going back to the island, I said, don't worry, mama, don't cry. And since this is not easy to carry around, people who know me know that in my left pocket, I always have tic-tac. Woke up early one morning, kissed my mama goodbye. Going back to the island, I said, don't worry, mama, don't cry. And that beat is the only beat I do. It is the beat that you hear on the saw for rake and scrape. It is the beat that is also in Junkanoo now, with the new musical instrument that is standard in all Junkanoo groups now. I don't know what you call it, there's a name, but you all know what I mean. For rake and scrape and Junkanoo, because they are like this, rake and scrape and Junkanoo. And that's kind of a commonality beat. So, next interview might be about rake and scrape. Hope you've enjoyed this historical tour. These are the rainwater drums that my husband set up to feed off the rain gutters. And the PVC piping comes down, and it can swivel here, here, and here. The Bahamians usually take an old sheet and put it on the top to use as a filter to keep the rainwater clean. I didn't have an old sheet, so I went to the local landscaper, Garden Creations, and I was able to very inexpensively buy this type of fabric that the landscapers use, and it functions just like the sheet, so that I have lovely, clear, clean rainwater.